What is your take on the Web 2.0 hype?
Well, I think Web 2.0 is the biggest bunch of bullshit I've ever heard in my life. These are things that we were talking about way back in the pioneering days of the web. We talk about user-generated content. Let's face it, eBay was doing this in 1996. We've got new tools, and the new tools have new names, but the problems that we're trying to solve in generic terms are things that we have always been concerned about. I think that Web 2.0 is a dangerous term because it sent a signal out to a community that is not quite as mature as it likes to think it is. And suddenly people get all worried, oh, well, whatever we have must be old-fashioned. We've got to be doing something else. And sometimes it's not a question of doing something else. It's just doing what you're doing now, but doing it better.
Now, I'd like to hear about the advantages of using social media on the intranet then.
Well, the advantage comes if you can use, and it's not just social media, but any kind of an interactive tool to improve processes within an organization. Let's face it, businesses got along very, very well before they even had telephones. And the telephone came along and some businesses adopted it and thought, well, this is really good, now we can talk to our customers. Others waited until as late as 1930 before they installed telephones. And today I think social media is kind of the same thing. People have to figure out, well, what is the right mix? What are we trying to accomplish? It is a question of innovation, and innovation is always something that is planned. It's not the same as invention. This is a mistake that's commonly made. And if you don't solve a problem with innovation, or if innovation doesn't solve a problem, you're invariably going to create one. You have to think of there are going to be technological aspects, there are going to be social aspects, and there are going to be cultural aspects of whatever you do. And these are the kinds of things that we see in societies at large, but also these are also things we see within the context of corporate culture. So all the sociological things we know about how innovation works outside the firewall also works internally. So what tools should we use, or where the advantages are? The advantages are that we're going to improve an existing process. But what tool and what process, that's up to the individual company.
Now, what do companies need to do? I mean, what kinds of changes in our thinking has to happen in order to make social media work on our intranets?
Well, I think number one, the people who are actually running the company, the people who are signing the checks and giving their approval for this, need to accept the fact that the people that are working for them have changed. There's a new mentality. There's an American author by the name of Eric Chester who talks about kidployees. He defines he sees 1980 kind of as the watershed year, and before then, people from my generation, well, the customer is king and the boss is the boss and all this kind of thing, and you're loyal to your company. And kidployees have a very different view of things, and they say, well, I'm loyal until somebody pays me more money, and the boss is the guy who keeps everybody else off of my neck, and the customer isn't necessarily the king. Customer is a necessary evil within the context of my job. These are people who are looking for personal recognition, and I think that's also one of the reasons why so many of the social media tools are generally used by a younger audience, because they do get gratification, they do see their name in lights. David Weinberger from Harvard talks about, well, blogging means that everybody will be famous to 15 people, which is kind of a take on Andy Warhol's old statement that everybody will be famous for 15 minutes. The bosses now, the people who are in their 50s and 60s, need to understand that the people who are going to take over their position and are already moving up into middle management have a very different view of the world, and they expect to be able to use these tools. So I guess in a very, very short sentence, the bosses need to stop being afraid, they need to stop hiding in their offices, and they need to accept the fact that people want to have conversations with them.
Now, as the end result, what can a company achieve by using social media in a general term?
Well, not general terms, in very specific terms, they're going to save money if they implement it properly, because they will be replacing an ineffectual process with something that's better. We can see already that when the fax came along, people stopped putting things in envelopes, and that saved money on postage. email allows people to collaborate across great distances on the same document. Social media has very similar parameters. We haven't really seen the business cases yet. We see a lot of business cases that don't make any sense, where, hey, we've got so many people who are following the corporate blog, or we've got so many followers on Twitter, and these are meaningless metrics that do not necessarily contribute to the bottom line. I think we need to reevaluate how we're using the tools we have now. They can be personal meetings, they can be email, they can be telephone calls, and in some cases actually just good old-fashioned snail mail. But we've got to move on beyond those.